She made $380,000 last year and had nothing to show for it. Net worth was negative, everything impressive was financed, and every visible marker of success was leased or borrowed against. And she was one of the most accomplished people that I've ever sat across from. I want to be honest with you about why I'm starting this video there, because that story's not unusual. Because the reason behind it is almost never what people assume it is. It's not irresponsibility. It's not a lack of discipline. It's not that she didn't care or didn't try. It's something that most financial advisors never talk about and most financial content never touches. It's the trauma of money. And this video is going to be the most honest conversation about high income financial patterns that I know how to have. Let's work. Let me first start by telling you what the trauma of money is, because most people hear that phrase and they think it means something dramatic, or a financial crisis or bankruptcy or childhood poverty. And sometimes it is those things, but most often it's quieter than that. It's the feeling in the house around money, the tension when bills arrive, the arguments that happened and then went silent for days, or the things that were never said but that everyone understood. The way adults in your life held their breath at certain times of the month. It's the belief you formed as a child trying to make sense of it all. Money's dangerous, money's something other people manage. Wanting more is greedy. Having too much means something is wrong with you. Keeping money feels selfish when people around you have less. You may have heard those things or may have felt those feelings around money. None of those, though, were lessons that you were consciously taught. They were conclusions that you drew from what you observed, what you felt, and what you absorbed in the environment before you had the cognitive development to examine any of it. And then you grew up and started earning and brought every single one of those beliefs with you. Here's what I need you to understand about that. A belief that money is temporary, or that it always runs out, or that you're not someone who keeps it, or that having it is evidence of something you should feel guilty about. That belief doesn't look at your paycheck and update itself. It just keeps running. And it runs underneath every financial decision that you make, in ways that you can feel but you often can't name or explain, or in patterns that repeat across income levels, across jobs, across years, without ever being identified as patterns. You may have tried to out-earn those feelings or those thoughts or those patterns, and you just can't do it. So the work that I do before we ever look at a spreadsheet is this right here. Because a financial strategy built on top of an unexamined belief system will only hold until the belief has a reason to activate. And then it's not going to hold at all. So let me show you what the trauma of money looks like in high earners specifically. There are 4 patterns, and I've watched all 4 of them across hundreds of clients over the 16 years that I've been an advisor. And what makes them particularly difficult to interrupt is that they all feel completely rational from the inside. So pattern 1 is lifestyle inflation driven by an identity wound. So that looks like, she got a $60,000 raise, and 8 months later, she was more financially anxious than she'd ever been in years. And when we looked at the numbers, the math was clear. The income was really up $60,000. Her monthly expenses were $5,800, but almost every dollar of that raise got absorbed before she ever had a chance to build with it. A new car, she did the upgrades, a new apartment, a new bag. And when I asked her to walk me through each of those decisions, something became clear that the spreadsheet hadn't shown me. Every major expense was connected to a version of herself that she felt she was now supposed to be with this increase. The apartment was in the neighborhood where people at her income lived. The car was what someone with her title drove. And the bags matched the room that she was now being invited to. She wasn't really spending recklessly, but she was spending to prove that she belonged. And underneath that was a belief that she never examined, that the income alone was not enough, that you had to perform it visibly or it didn't count as real. That belief was costing her $60,000 before it ever had a chance to grow and compound. Lifestyle inflation is not just a math problem. It's the financial expression of not fully believing that you deserve to keep what you earn. Pattern 2 is tax avoidance. And that's driven by learned helplessness. So this client, she paid $97,000 in taxes last year and cried in my office. But it wasn't because of the number, it was because of what the number meant to her. It should have been because of the number. But she had grown up in a house where money was always tight enough that every financial mistake carried weight, right? So a $97,000 tax bill activated the same nervous system response she had as a child when money went wrong. That sick, helpless feeling of watching something disappear that you couldn't control. So the tears weren't really about the taxes. They were about something much older than the tax bill. And because that feeling was running the show, she had never been able to approach the tax conversation strategically. It was too loaded. Every time it came up, the anxiety arrived first, and then the strategy never had room to really have the conversation. So her adjusted gross income was sitting at her full salary with zero strategy to reduce it. No real contributions or deductions that she was entitled to that nobody had ever walked her through. But once we restructured everything, over the next few months, her tax bill dropped to only $19,000 on that same amount of income. So her feelings were real, but the structure was changeable. And both of those things were true at the same time. Pattern 3 is financial deference. And that's coming from an inherited silence. So this client was a physician, over $500,000 a year, and they'd already done the research, right? They knew their advisor was costing her tens of thousands of dollars in unnecessary fees and suboptimal products. But she stayed with them for 2 years, even after she found that out. And when I asked her why she stayed, she just said, I don't know. It felt like I have no right to question him. And that belief, believe it or not, it didn't come out of nowhere. It comes from the backstory that we're talking about. Everybody has a backstory. She grew up in a home where financial authority was deferred to without question, where money conversations kind of belonged to other people, and where questioning someone in a financial position of power felt presumptuous. So that inherited belief cost her more than the advisor's fees ever did, because the information that she needed was already in her hands. She just didn't believe that she had the right to act on it. And that's what I want you to kind of understand about financial trauma. That's how it operates in high earners in a way that nobody really talks about. It's not always anxiety or avoidance. Sometimes it's just deference, like a silence in the room when you absolutely have the right to speak. Pattern 4 is performing wealth instead of actually building it. And that brings me back to where I started, to the client that was making $380,000 a year and had a negative net worth. When we worked backwards through her financial decisions over 5 years, the pattern was unmistakable. She had grown up without much, and somewhere in the process of earning more than anyone in her family ever had, she'd learned that the appearance of wealth and wealth itself were the same thing. So every one of her dollars went toward what could be seen, nothing going towards what was hidden, like in stocks or her savings accounts. I asked her when she had last felt financially secure, not comfortable, but secure, like her foundation was solid, and she couldn't remember. And here's what I've learned from watching that pattern. People who build wealth quietly and people who perform wealth visibly, they're often responding from the same original womb. And you might not think that, but the womb is actually scarcity, the not enoughness, the thing that they spent their childhood trying to get away from, or that they were embarrassed or ashamed about. The difference is what they learned that getting away from that looked like. So one group learned that security comes from what cannot be seen, the accounts, the investments, the compounding growth in the background, the number nobody would guess. And the other learned that security comes from what everybody can see, the markers that prove you made it, the bags, the shoes, the labels, the vacations. It's important to note that both of these people are trying to feel safe. They're just using completely different strategies to get there. And only one of those strategies actually produces the safety that they're looking for. Now I want to tell you what actually changes when this work gets done. Because I'm not describing a process that ends with you feeling better about money while your account stays exactly the same. I'm describing a process that changes the financial decisions that you make because it changes the belief that's running them. The client with the lifestyle inflation, she didn't need a stricter budget. When she understood that the spending was connected to a belief that she needed to perform the income to validate it, the spending pattern changed. Not because she forced it, because the thing underneath it had been addressed. The identity work preceded the financial work and made the financial work hold in a way that a budget alone never would. And that client with the $97,000 tax bill, she didn't need another tax strategy per se. She needed to be able to approach the tax conversation without the anxiety arriving first and shutting everything down. Because once the emotional weight around the number shifted, she could sit inside the strategy conversation long enough to let it work. She could look at the decisions clearly instead of through a nervous system that associated them with danger. And that physician who stayed with the advisor who was costing her money, she didn't just need a new advisor. She needed to believe that she had the right to question what was happening to her money and with her money, what she understood where the deference came from, and that it was a learned response, not an accurate assessment of her capability. Then she moved and made a decision, quickly and decisively. What I'm describing is not a replacement for financial strategy. It's what makes financial strategy possible. A budget implemented by someone who believes money's supposed to disappear will always find a way to make it disappear. A tax strategy delivered to someone whose nervous system associates financial decisions with danger is going to be avoided, delayed, and eventually abandoned. And an investment allocation designed for someone who doesn't believe there's someone who builds wealth, it's going to be ignored until a crisis forces attention to it. You have to address underneath first, then build the plan. And that sequence, that order is everything. So let me give you the 3 things that you can do right now. The first is the simplest and the most important. Ask yourself what money felt like in your house growing up. Not what was said about it, not the conversations that you may have overheard, but what it felt like. Was it tense? Was it tight? Was it unspoken? Did it create silence or argument? Did you feel like your family had enough, or like there was always a background roar or hum that there wasn't enough? Whatever comes up, that's information. And it's the beginning of understanding what belief system that you've been operating from. You don't have to do anything with it today, but just identify it. Name it if you can, because again, you can't address something that you've been calling by the wrong name. The second is a net worth calculation. Right now, tonight, everything you own minus everything you owe. That's your net worth. Whatever that number is, that's your starting point, not your salary, not your title, your net worth. That's the number worth optimizing for. And most high earners have not looked at that number recently, or maybe don't even know what it is. The third is a strategy conversation. Not with an accountant who files what you hand them, but with someone who starts with the full picture before they start with the plan, who understands that your relationship with money is not separate from your financial life. It is your financial life. That's what a strategy call at Black Wealth Financial is for. It's 45 minutes, no pitch, no pressure at all, just an honest look at where you are and what's actually possible from here. The link to book that and have that conversation is in the description. Most people who watch this video like this, they're gonna recognize something in it, and they'll feel the truth of it in a specific and personal and maybe even an uncomfortable way. And then they'll close the video and go back to the same patterns. Not because they're not smart enough to do something different, but because the pattern is more powerful than the intention until the belief underneath the pattern gets addressed. That's the work. That's what's available to you. And the longer you wait, the more it costs you. I'll see you in the next one.